On Christmas Eve in a crowded supermarket, a stressed manager publicly humiliates a boy when his EBT card fails and coins spill across the checkout. A stalker on probation risks his job by paying for the kid's groceries and walking them out, getting fired on the spot, and driving the boy home to cook a quiet meal. The fallout leads to small, lasting changes at the store and in the stalker's life, bending the world a little toward care without a speech. Before we get started, tap like, share, and subscribe to join the journey. And tell me, where in the world are you watching? Drop your country below. I love seeing the global trail of these stories. The store manager pinched the kid's backpack strap and yanked him sideways. Quarters skittered across the conveyor, pinging off the scanner. A gallon of milk rocked in the cart and sloshed. People turned. The Christmas song on the radio kept going, smooth and fake, like it couldn't see what was right there. "Open your pockets," she said loud enough for the adjacent lane to hear. "Empty them. Hood down." The boy's face was red from cold and embarrassed heat. He fumbled at his pockets with stiff fingers, breath fogging under the bright lights. He was small, maybe 12. His gloves didn't match. He had a turkey half the size of his torso, a bag of potatoes, 2 cans of cranberry with dented rims, and a box of off-brand stuffing. His EBT card sat on the belt like a scolded thing. "Card's expired," the manager said. "Trying to pass it through after I already told you no? That's a no." She bent and flicked a quarter off the floor with the side of her shoe. It spun under the gum racks. Drew wiped his hands on his vest and cut through the lanes. He was coming from the back with a pallet of cranberries, hands still cold from the cooler. He saw the coins, the boy peeling off his hat like it was contraband, the manager's tight mouth. He stopped next to the register and felt his ribs go tight. He knew this manager. Tired, sharp, the kind of person with a headset mark pressed into the side of her hair and a spreadsheet in her head. He also knew the memo that had hit inboxes that morning. Shrink was up, audits were coming, no exceptions at the front end. His rent was due in 4 days. He had one write-up already for clocking in late after his bus skipped. He was inside the 90-day probation window where one more thing could end it. It wasn't just the job. He had a parole card in his wallet and a PO who used the word incident like it could break a person. He looked at the kid who was collecting coins with one hand and holding up his pants with the other. The kid mumbled, "My grandma said," and couldn't finish. "I got this," he said to the cashier. His voice came out steady. He slid his employee badge across the little reader and held out his card. "Ring it under me." The cashier looked up at the manager. The line breathed like a single lung. The security guy by the soda coolers shifted 1 foot. "Policy says no employee purchases on flagged transactions," the manager snapped. "You know that? It counts as a con." She used her calm store voice, but her jaw had a twitch. "We're not Santa." He tried to push an expired card. "That's attempted fraud." "The food is still food," Drew said. He kept it small. He didn't look at the Gawkers in tartan scarves, at the teenager filming on his phone down by the flowers. He didn't look at the security guy. "If he wants it, he can step to guest services with a legal guardian," she said, pointing towards slow-moving air where a sign said Happy Holidays in green script. "He can talk to them about options." "It's Christmas Eve," someone said behind them, not quite to anyone. A little kid in a red coat started to cry, and a mom shushed them. The belt kept moving, and the next person's paper towels crowded the turkey like it had to make room. Drew put his card down again. "Ring. It. Under. Me." He didn't raise his voice. He still felt the cold on his knuckles. The manager stepped between him and the keypad. "You want to go there? You want to make it a thing? Because I've got security right here, and your review next week, and I can do math. I can also call your file." Her eyes flicked to his vest where his name sat like a label on a shelf. Drew had learned a new kind of breath since he got out. In slow, out slow. He let the breath fill into the back of his ribs and counted a beat. He wasn't going to sleep if he walked away from the boy. He knew that with the same surety as knowing the time the buses stopped running. He lifted the turkey and the milk and put them into a paper bag. He slid the cans in on their sides so they wouldn't punch the bottom. "Put it on me," he said. "Write me up." "Don't you dare walk that off my belt," the manager said. Her cheeks had gotten blotchy. "You are not leaving this lane with unpaid merchandise." "Scan it," he said to the cashier, who was blinking fast and suddenly busy with the register like she had been asked to defuse a bomb. The beep sounded the same as always. The numbers jumped. The manager grabbed for the bag and missed the handles. The boy flinched and made himself smaller. The security guy moved in a little, one hand open. Put the bag down, the manager said. This is a direct order from a supervisor, or we do this the other way. Her voice had slipped off calm and was sliding around. Meet me by the side door, Drew said to the boy. He had the bag in his hands now, the weight biting his fingers through the paper. He didn't run, he walked. Stop him, the manager said. Security stepped into his path. He was big and red-cheeked and looked more like a youth hockey coach than anything. Don't make me, security said, low. I like you, man. I'm walking to the door, Drew said, still moving. You can walk with me. They did. A slow parade that had customers in scarves turning to watch like it was part of the store entertainment. One person laughed in the weird way people laugh when they're scared for someone who isn't them. The sensors by the exit stayed silent because the stuff had been scanned. The world was weird that way. In the vestibule, the manager's voice came over the radio, clipped to security's shoulder. He's done, she said. Insubordination. Fire him. And if he leaves with the bag, I want it documented. Security looked at Drew, at the door, at the boy shivering with his hat back on his head. You're going to make my shift hard, he said. It was already hard, Drew said. He pushed the door open with his hip, and the cold came in, clean and hard and better than the bright lights. He and the boy slipped into it like it was a different room. Snow spit sideways in the lot. The kid's sneakers squeaked. Drew's car was the dented silver hatchback with the missing hubcap and the salt beard along the doors. He put the bag in the back and pulled a cardboard box over it like it needed camouflage. He didn't look back until they were both in the car with the heat screaming and the windows fogging. Security stood in the vestibule watching like someone at an aquarium. The manager was a silhouette behind him, sharp shoulders and headset wire like a stray line. You got a ride? Drew asked. The kid shook his head. He pulled his hat down lower. Grandma fell last week, he said. She said, get what's cheap. I thought. He swallowed the next part like it was sharp. What's your address? Drew asked. He handed over his phone. The kid typed with both thumbs, careful and slow. The building was a third-floor walk-up that breathed out stale heat. The hallway carpet had that pattern like a hotel from a long time ago. A stroller leaned against a wall with one wheel missing. Someone had taped a paper wreath to a door and it had a coffee stain on it. Inside their place, the air smelled like bleach and dust. A blanket was folded on a couch. The living room had a little fake tree with 2 lights burned out and 3 ornaments. A handprint in salt dough, a felt heart, and a plastic star that was too big for the top. His grandma was in bed behind a curtain with little blue squares on it. She called out, baby, and then coughed. The kid said, it's me, and Drew stood in the kitchen and opened the bag. He moved like he had in kitchens before, the cheap ones with the light that never warmed up, the good ones where you could whistle and not feel silly. He turned the oven knob with a pair of pliers from his trunk toolkit. The little flame caught and held. He slid the turkey in low with water in the pan so it wouldn't dry out. He washed his hands until they pinged from the cold tap and started the potatoes. The kid set the table like it was a test, and he wanted an A. 2 plates, 2 forks that didn't match, a glass for water and a mug for milk. He made the cranberry wobble out of the can, and it kept the ridges like default armor. Do you have salt? Drew asked. The kid handed him a shaker with tape around the middle to keep it from leaking. Drew salted the water and looked at the air vent where dust had fur on it. He was quiet. The boy's shoulders lowered a millimeter. On the fridge, a final discact notice clung under a cracked magnet. Next to it was a school letter about lunch charges, with a sad cartoon apple in the corner. A folded hospital discharge paper poked from behind a takeout menu. Under it all was a photo of the kid with a woman who had the same eyes, her arm around him, both of them looking into sun. He didn't ask. He didn't try to fix anything with a speech because he didn't have one. He found a sack of carrots, soft with age, and rescued the firm parts. He set aside the bruised pieces for soup. The radio on the counter caught a game that crackled in and out. While the turkey did what it does at low heat, he wiped the counter with the side of his sleeve and frowned at himself, then found a sponge and did it right. He rinsed the sink when the drain sounded like it wanted to give up. He held the ceiling tile over the stove with his palms so it would seat in its bend and not droop. The kid went behind the curtain and came out with a bottle of pills and the expense of trust. She needs these with food, he said, and then put them back like he hadn't asked for anything. When the house had that good smell, he helped them eat. He cut his own piece small and chewed slow, because once his whole body used to do fast and he was done with that. The grandma's hands shook and then steadied as the protein hit. The kid waited until she took her pills, then took his first real bite, and his eyes closed 1 second too long. "Call if you need a ride," he wrote on a sticky note and pressed it to the microwave. He put his number there. He put a second note on the inside of the cabinet, with the cans in case one got misplaced. He didn't leave cash because there were eyes in buildings like this, and sometimes bad luck had legs. He left the receipt for his own account, not sure if he'd need it for the meeting where they told him to turn in his badge. He put the pliers back in his trunk. It had started to snow for real, the kind that stuck to eyebrows and made cars seem farther away. 2 days later, he came back for his final check. He had shaved and put on his cleanest hoodie. The store looked the same and different, like time had shifted the shelves a hair. A sign near the registers said, "If your card has trouble, we're here to help. Guest services." The font was warm. The manager was there. She had bruised half-moons under her eyes like sleep had been something she'd forgot. She didn't look at him. She made a point of explaining batteries to a man who didn't need help with batteries. The cashier who had scanned the turkey caught his eye and held it for half a second like a tiny handshake. In the break room, a clear plastic jar sat by the microwave. A label said, "Quiet Help." There was a folded 10 inside, and some singles and a bus pass. On the whiteboard someone had written, "Front lanes, take people to GS for payment issues." No announcements. It had underlines and a smiley that looked tired. They made him sign a form and slide his badge across the desk. The HR lady didn't make eye contact long. "Good luck," she said, and it was the kind of thing people say when they mean it and wish it was more. By then, he was scrubbing pans at the all-night diner on 3rd. The boss was a woman with tattoos like stories and a laugh on delay. He liked the rhythm. Hot, cold, scrape, rinse. The radio played older songs that didn't talk about home. The night manager boxed up a mistake grilled cheese on his first shift and said, "Take it," with no wink. A regular in a knit cap started leaving a brown bag at the end of the counter every other night. Inside, a can of beans, some coffee, a gift card for the very store he got fired from that someone had half spent. No note, no explanation. The world could be small that way. A week after that, a beat-up lunchbox waited on his stoop. Inside were coins heavy as apology. Also, a drawing on lined paper of a turkey with rectangle feet, signed with a name and a date. He laughed once, quiet. He put the lunchbox on his kitchen counter and it looked like it had always belonged there. He had a voicemail from an unknown number. It was the kid voice trying not to run. "We made sandwiches with leftovers. She says hi." That was all. It was enough. He stood on the sidewalk and looked up. In the kids' building, one window had blue Christmas lights blinking slow. Behind the glass, a paper snowflake hung a little crooked and stirred when the heat kicked on. Snow pasted to the lamppost and the halo around it turned the air soft. He put his hands in his pockets and let the streetlight shine on the sidewalk like it always had, just as if it hadn't seen anything different and everything had shifted anyway.